Ivan, and I am essentially a beader and an embroiderer. I'm primarily known now for tambour beading and teaching tambour beading, but my journey through needlepoint and needlework started in 1973 when I graduated from college, and I started just working on a piece that I had seen done on television, and that just led from one thing to the next to the next. And then eventually I changed careers and went into the theater world as a costume technology professor and as a cutter draper. And when I was dealing with period costumes, I ended up having to learn a lot of other techniques to make them authentic and as authentic as possible. So I've been basically off and on embroidering either in full scale or in 12th scale, one inch to the foot dollhouse scale since 1973. As part of my training, I received earned my professional certificate from Lesage in Paris in haute couture embroidery, and then also my certificate in hand embroidery from the Royal School of Needlework. After I had stitched for probably 20 years, I decided to actually take some classes. And so now I do a lot of teaching, primarily in the US and in Canada and in other countries, of the tambour technique, because it's one that is recognized but not known much about. There's very little written about it, and there are even fewer of us aggressively teaching it. And in order to keep it going for another generation or two, we need to get tambour hooks in the hands of as many stitchers as possible. The most important training that I got was at Lesage in Paris, where they do all of the embroidery for the couture collections, particularly for Chanel, that have been doing them for a variety of couturiers since the 1890s. This piece here represents the professional certificate at Lesage, and it is essentially a tambour sampler. It represents a whole series of techniques that are used in the couture industry, as well as some of the techniques that they use off and on at Lesage. It combines beads, sequins, suede, silk organza, silk chiffon, raffia, sew-on stones, lock rosin, feathers, let's see what else is on there, in a variety of techniques. And 90% of that was all done with the same technique, which is the tambour stitch, which is executed with a very, very fine little pointed hook. And all of 90% of that was done with that hook, it was done on the underside of the fabric, so you're only looking at the back of the fabric. We'll get as much as possible in the time I was there. Now, in most cases, what they're doing at Lesage and how they use this technique once you learn it is it's applied to garments. In this case, I have just a couple of samples here that are a little shawl and a little unstructured jacket that's got beadwork all over it. But it doesn't have to be restricted to garments anymore. It has uses that go way beyond just the couture industry. And that's why I came to Rittenhouse Needlepoint, because we wanted to experiment with using this technique that is primarily geared for haute couture fashion and apply it to traditional needlepoint canvases and techniques, and use that technique to apply beads and sequins to a canvas as opposed to a needle and thread, both as an entire piece and or as embellishments on an otherwise stitched piece. And this was the result of that little project, that the whole design was done with the tambour hook, with beads and sequins, experimenting with the shape and size of the beads and the shape and size of the sequins to make sure that we covered the canvas. And it, I think, is going to have a lot of potential in the future. I've visited many needlework and sewing stores across the country in my travels, but it wasn't until I actually came here to Rittenhouse in Philadelphia that I have ever seen so many threads in one place. in addition to all the painted canvases they have, but the thread collection here is unsurpassed. There's everything from your standard DMC cotton embroidery floss to some exquisitely hand-dyed silk threads and silk flosses that work up into beautiful, beautiful pieces. And I've been, while I was here for the class, I was experimenting with a variety of the threads to see how well they would work with a tambour hook. And I'm working on testing almost all of the threads so that I will have a list of what size hook to use with this particular kind of thread, and how many strands you should use, so that you can make the most out of it, both in needlepoint, but also applying to tambour work on garments and other things. Essentially, the collection of threads here at Rittenhouse Needlepoint is exemplary. If they don't have it, you don't need it. And you can get pretty much everything online, but I would strongly suggest you, if you're in the neighborhood or anywhere within 6 states, get yourself to Philadelphia and stop in and see this collection of threads, because you won't see more threads in one place any place else. Certainly in the US, and I have not seen this many even in some of the bigger facilities in London and Paris. They are to be commended for the stock that they maintain here to be able to cover every possible use and texture and color and surface finish. It's just absolutely amazing. In addition to the hundreds of threads and styles of threads that they have here at Rittenhouse Needlepoint, they also run a wide range of classes, from beginner stitching to more advanced projects to special interest projects. That's basically what got me here to experiment teaching the needlepoint, the tambour on needlepoint canvas, as well as introducing the pure tambour work. But the classes here are constantly expanding, and they're all listed on their website. And the opportunities to learn new stitches, new techniques, new materials, experiment with new threads as they come in will only grow, I'm sure, in the future. And they have a very nice little classroom area that's well lit, and everyone that I worked with for the 10 days I was here seemed to have a really good experience in the facility as well as in the classes. So anyone that's interested in any kind of needlework, whether it's needlepoint or other stitching, you certainly have opportunities to learn a variety of techniques here through their class program. Once you get done stitching, you get to turn the frame over to see how it all looks. And that's when you go, ooh, ah.